What if you carry a lost sense inside your body right now, and almost never hear it speak? Close your eyes. Point north. Do not calculate. Do not replay the path you took. Just point. You pointed somewhere. Most people do. And most people point wrong. Not a little wrong. Wildly wrong. Often by 90 degrees. Sometimes by 180. That is not poor accuracy. That is silence. The strange part is this. The missing sense is not gone. Your body still has the hardware. In the early 1990s, geophysicist Joseph Kirschvink at the California Institute of Technology found magnetite crystals in the human brain. Magnetite is a naturally magnetic iron mineral. It appears in homing pigeons, migratory fish, honeybees, and other animals that can detect the Earth's magnetic field. This matters a lot. In species with proven magnetoreception, magnetite shows up in the right tissues. Kirschvink found it in humans too, and not in meaningless traces. He found it in the brainstem and the cerebellum. These are ancient parts of the brain. They are older than language, older than abstract thought. They were already there when early humans crossed land with no maps at all. Then came an even stranger clue. In the early 2010s, neurobiologist Stephen Reppert studied monarch butterflies. Every year, these insects fly from North America to central Mexico. The trip can stretch for about 3,000 miles, even though a butterfly weighs less than a gram. How do they do it? Part of the answer is a protein called cryptochrome. It sits in the eyes. It reacts to magnetic fields at the quantum level. In effect, it helps an animal register magnetic direction through vision. And then the experiment took a turn that changed everything. Reppert used fruit flies that had been altered so they lacked cryptochrome. Those flies lost their magnetic sensitivity. Then his team inserted the human version of cryptochrome. The result was stunning. The flies regained the ability to respond to magnetic fields. Human cryptochrome worked. That means the human eye contains a molecule with the functional capacity for magnetoreception. Not a poetic metaphor. Not a loose analogy. A working biological component. So the obvious question follows. If the mineral is in the brain and the protein is in the eye, why do most people feel nothing? Kirschvink pushed that question further in the late 2010s. He ran one of the strictest human tests on magnetoreception ever attempted. Volunteers sat inside a Faraday cage, a shielded chamber that blocks outside electromagnetic noise. Researchers then rotated magnetic fields around them in controlled patterns, while recording brain activity with electroencephalography. Some subjects showed a clear response. When the magnetic field rotated in a pattern that matched natural head movement in the Earth's field, their alpha brain waves dropped in a strong and repeatable way. Not everyone responded, but some clearly did. That detail matters. The brain was detecting geomagnetic change. It was processing the signal. It just was not bringing that signal into conscious awareness. That is the real mystery. The sense may not be absent at all. It may be filtered out. Your nervous system could be receiving directional information and then discarding it as irrelevant. The signal arrives, but awareness never gets the message. Somewhere between reception and consciousness, the brain treats it as noise. By the way, if details like this pull you in, subscribe to the channel. Here we dig into the hidden systems humans still carry without noticing. Once you see that pattern, the historical evidence becomes harder to ignore. There are cultures that seem to preserve a far stronger relationship to direction than industrialized societies do. Aboriginal Australians are a powerful example. For at least 65,000 years they moved across desert, forest, and coastline without written maps. Their songlines encoded routes, landmarks, water sources, and sacred places into sequences of verse. A traveler could sing the land and move through it. European observers were often stunned. In terrain that looked empty to outsiders, Aboriginal navigators could identify location and heading with confidence. Across the Pacific, Polynesian navigators crossed the largest ocean on Earth in open canoes. They used stars, swells, bird behavior, winds, and cloud patterns. But many master navigators also describe something harder to translate into modern technical language. They speak of feeling orientation through the whole body. Nainoa Thompson, who helped revive traditional Hawaiian navigation in the 1970s, has described this practice in exactly those terms. Not constant calculation, felt alignment. And there is another clue, buried in language itself. The Guugu Yimithirr people of northern Queensland do not rely on left and right the way English speakers do. They use absolute directions, such as north, south, east, and west in daily speech. That changes everything. A person does not say the cup is to your left. They say it is to the north or to the east. To speak this way all day, every day, you must keep track of orientation constantly. Cognitive scientists who studied such communities found that this awareness often runs below deliberate thought. It is automatic, it is stable, it does not seem to require effort. So the pattern repeats. Animals use magnetic cues. Human biology contains key components linked to magnetic sensing. Controlled experiments show that some human brains still react to magnetic field changes, and certain traditional cultures maintain a level of directional awareness that many modern people find almost impossible to imagine, which leads to the unsettling possibility that the problem is not that humans never had this sense. The problem may be that modern life taught us to stop listening to it. The difference is not in the brain itself. Human hardware is the same. Magnetite appears in every human brain. Cryptochrome appears in every human retina. The gap is not biological. It comes from environment, habit, and training. So the real question is simple. What stopped that training? For most of human history, people lived inside the landscape. They moved by sun and stars. They read wind, water, slope, and shadow. They watched animals. They watched light. Travel demanded constant orientation. Survival demanded it too. A person had to know where they were. There were no street names. There were no numbered houses. There was no neat grid over the land. The body had to carry that map. Then the built world changed everything. In roughly a single century, the human navigation environment was rebuilt. Paths became named streets. Landmarks gave way to addresses. Memory gave way to printed maps. Walking gave way to railways. Open terrain gave way to dense cities. And the key point is this. The old sense was not disproved. It was not punished. It was made unnecessary. Once the environment stopped demanding internal orientation, the brain stopped reinforcing it. Children grew up in cities where signs solved direction, numbers solved location. A stranger could solve the rest. Within a few generations, the sense did not vanish. It went quiet. That distinction matters. Extinct is gone. Silent can return. Kirschvink's experiments point straight at that fact. In some subjects, the brain still reacts to shifts in the magnetic field. The alpha wave response appears. It can be measured. It can be repeated. The machinery remains in place. The hardware stayed. The deeper system stayed. What faded was use. And the brain is efficient, brutally efficient. It strengthens what gets used. It downplays what does not. If a signal no longer helps daily life, the brain lowers its priority. Over time, that signal sinks into background noise. This pattern is not unique. It appears again and again across human biology and culture. Segmented sleep was once common. Then artificial light changed nights and made that pattern less useful. Local solar time once lived in the body. Then railroads imposed standard time across regions. Whistled language could carry detailed meaning across distance. Then the telephone made that skill less necessary. By the way, if details like these pull you in, subscribe to the channel. Here we follow the hidden abilities the modern world taught us to ignore. The same logic may apply here. A body-based skill gets replaced by an external system. A sense inside the nervous system gets replaced by a tool in the hand. What once required no battery, no subscription, and no satellite gets replaced by infrastructure that fails the moment the system goes dark. That is the larger pattern. Institutions absorb functions the body once handled alone. So pause on the lived experience for a moment. What would it feel like to always know where you are? Not by checking a map. Not by reading a sign. Not by watching a moving dot on a screen. By sensation, not calculation. Sensation. The comparison is simple. You do not calculate hunger. You feel it. You do not compute cold first. You sense it. You can feel when someone stands close behind you. That awareness arrives before language. It sits below thought. Imagine direction working like that. You would not think about north. You would feel north. It would sit in the background all the time. Quiet, steady, constant. A built-in compass. Not as a metaphor, but as a stream of bodily information. This is not mysticism. It is a neurological question. Many animals show versions of this ability. Birds cross entire hemispheres with it. Sea turtles hatch at night and move toward the ocean with astonishing reliability. Salmon return across immense distances. In several species, magnetite and light-sensitive proteins help explain how this works. In humans, the evidence is incomplete, but it is not empty. That is why the anatomy matters. Magnetite has been found in the human brain, especially in older and deeper regions. Cryptochrome is present in the retina, and in other organisms that protein can participate in magnetic detection. Controlled experiments have shown measurable brain responses to rotating magnetic fields. None of this proves full conscious magnetoreception in modern people, but it does prove that the question is serious. And then another clue appears. Traditional cultures that still rely on land-based navigation often show orientation skills. They track direction with a fluency that seems unusual only because modern life no longer trains it. Language itself can reflect that training. Some communities describe space through cardinal directions, such as north, south, east, and west, rather than left and right. That habit forces continuous orientation. It keeps the internal map active. So the issue may not be missing biology. It may be missing practice. That possibility changes the whole story. If the sense was silenced by disuse, then modern confusion may not be the natural human condition. It may be a recent adaptation to streets, schedules, maps, and screens. And that raises harder questions. Why does the brain keep magnetite in ancient regions if it serves no purpose? Why does the retina carry a protein linked to magnetic detection in other species? Why do controlled conditions reveal responses to field changes? Why do some populations preserve orientation abilities others have lost? And one more question matters just as much. Why is there so little urgency around this? Neuroscience can measure brain responses to magnetic shifts, yet funding is limited. Institutional interest is thin. A possible human sense sits at the edge of the map, and very few people seem eager to explore it. Maybe the reason is familiar. A society that outsources a function often stops asking whether the original capacity still matters. Once the phone tells you where you are, the body no longer gets asked. Once the machine answers, the old question sounds irrelevant. But your body is still inside the field. Right now, the Earth's magnetic field is passing through you at this moment. It is the same field that guides migratory birds. The same field that aligns a compass needle. The same field that has wrapped this planet for billions of years. It has never left. And somewhere in your oldest neural architecture, the body may still be listening. Somewhere in the ancient brainstem and nearby structures, somewhere in the eye, cryptochrome remains. Somewhere between those receptors and awareness, a gate may have narrowed through generations of neglect. Not broken, not erased, narrowed. That is the unsettling part. Modern life may not have removed the sense. It may have buried it under convenience. The grid replaced the horizon. The address replaced the landmark. The app replaced the feeling. And the old orientation system, the one that may have helped humans move across continents for tens of thousands of years, almost nobody needed it to survive. But unnecessary is not the same as impossible. The sense may still be there. The signal never left you. It still lives in the eye and in the brain. Scientists have found proteins in the human eye that react to magnetic fields. They have also found minerals in the brain that may help with direction. So the ability may not be gone at all. It may be dormant. Traditional navigators prove that point. Polynesian wayfinders crossed huge stretches of ocean without modern instruments. They read stars, swells, wind, and subtle spatial cues. Dugu Yimithir speakers show something else. Their language uses cardinal directions in daily speech, even for simple events like breakfast. By the way, if you enjoy hidden details like these, subscribe to the channel. The result is striking. The human body still tracks direction. It always did. Many people simply stopped noticing the signal, and over time forgot it was ever there.